I worked 3 jobs, barely getting by until Grandma said, "Granddaughter, hope you're enjoying $9,000 a month." I asked, "What money?" When she learned my sister used funds meant for me, she raged and disowned her. I stand by my parents' graves and count the last $27 in my wallet. Yellow leaves rustle under my feet, and I think about how tomorrow I have to go to all 3 jobs again. A year has passed since the accident, but I still feel like it happened yesterday. My name is Merle Clark. I'm 27 years old, and I've almost forgotten what it's like to sleep more than 5 hours a day. In the morning, I clean the office of a computer company. During the day, I work at the checkout in a supermarket, and in the evening, I deliver food in my old Honda, which keeps stalling at traffic lights. "Merle, are you here again?" I hear a familiar voice behind me. I turned around. Pastor James was standing there with a bouquet of white chrysanthemums. "Hello, Pastor. Yes, I stopped by on my way home from work." "Child, you look tired. When was the last time you ate a proper meal?" I smiled, trying to hide the truth. Today I had only coffee for breakfast and a bag of crackers for lunch. I didn't have enough money for proper food. Everything went to rent, utilities, and paying off the funeral loan. Everything's fine, just a lot of work. He looked at me doubtfully, but didn't press the issue. He had known our family since my parents owned the Golden Grain Bakery on Main Street. Dad David baked the best bread in all of Roxdale, and Mom Susan made cakes that people lined up for. Her chocolate cupcakes with cherries and lemon tarts were especially popular. But then the pandemic began. Lockdown, closures, debts. My parents fought to the end, sold the car, mortgaged the house, but they couldn't save the business. "Girls, we did everything we could," Dad said on the last evening as we sat in the kitchen with tea and stale rolls. "We're going to have to close. But we have a little money left, $15,000 for each of you. That's all we could save after paying off the creditors." Dad looked like he had aged 10 years during those 2 years of struggle. Mom held his hand and tried not to cry. Alexa was sitting there, staring gloomily at her phone. She was 18, and the only thing that bothered her was why she couldn't go to the beach with her friends. "Don't worry, everything will be fine," I said, hugging Mom. She cried, and my dad squeezed my hand tightly. A week later, they were gone. Tuesday, October 23rd. A rainy road, a truck that didn't have time to brake. It was all over in a matter of seconds. Half the town came to the funeral. My parents were loved and respected. I stood by the coffin and tried to be strong for Alexa, who was crying on my shoulder. "What are we going to do now?" she asked over and over again. "We'll figure something out," I replied, even though I didn't know how. The first problems began a few days later. It turned out that the funeral cost much more than I had thought. $13,000. Coffins, memorial service, cemetery fees, flowers, hearse. And then there were my parents' debts, which automatically passed on to us. Alexa took it in her own way. "Listen, let's take my share and go somewhere to relax. We need to distract ourselves after all this horror," she said as we signed the papers at the bank. "Alexa, we have to pay for the funeral, for rent, for—" "Stop it. You always complicate everything. Look at Madison. Her parents bought her a new BMW after graduation. And what do we have? Nothing. Madison Tracy is her best friend from a wealthy family. Her dad owns a car dealership. Her mom is a dentist. Alexa always envied their lifestyle and constantly compared our modest bakery to their wealth. A week after the funeral, she came home with bags from designer brands. "Where did you get the money?" I asked, looking at her new $300 shoes. "It's my inheritance." "I have the right to spend it however I want." "Alexa, that's all your money. What will you do when it runs out?" She sighed, as she always did when I started lecturing her. "I'll find something. Maybe I'll go to school or find a job. I don't know." "You only live once, Merle." $15,000 disappeared in 2 weeks. Parties, restaurants, shopping, gifts for friends. Alexa lived as if money appeared in her wallet by itself. I remember the day she spent $2,000 at a shopping mall. She came home with huge bags and laid everything out on the bed. "Look at this dress! And this purse is just like Madison's, and these earrings are the best." "Alexa, how much did all this cost?" "It doesn't matter. The main thing is that I don't look like a beggar now." "We're not beggars. We're just what? Poor?" "Yes, Merle, we're poor, and I don't want to be." And I was left with a pile of bills and the need to support us both. I had to leave college in my senior year and look for a job, any job. My first job was as an office cleaner. I got up at 4 in the morning, drove across town, cleaned toilets, and wiped tables until 8. Then I would rush home, change clothes, and rush to the supermarket to work as a cashier until 6 in the evening. After that, I would deliver pizza and Chinese food until 11 at night. 7 days a week, no days off, no vacation. I remember the first night when I got home after all 3 jobs. My legs were so sore that I wanted to cry. My hands smelled of chlorine from the cleaning products, and there were ketchup stains on my sweater. Alexa was lying on the couch with her tablet, munching on expensive chips. "How's work?" she asked without looking up from the screen. "I'm tired." "But it's okay. I'll get used to it." "I'm thinking about college. Maybe I'll apply to the design department or journalism, something creative." "And who's going to pay for your tuition?" "I don't know yet. Maybe I'll take out a loan. Or something will turn up." That was her favorite phrase. Something will turn up. Alexa lived in a world where problems solved themselves and money fell from the sky. Alexa first tried to look for a job. At least that's what she said. But none of the offers suited her. "You have to get up at 6. They only pay $12 an hour. It's such a boring job. You have to wear a uniform." Gradually, she stopped looking altogether. She spent her days lying on the couch with her phone, and in the evenings she went out with her friends. "Where do you get the money for entertainment?" I asked when I saw her dressed up and wearing makeup for another party. "My friends treat me. Or guys, don't worry." "What about cosmetics? Clothes?" "Well, sometimes someone gives them to me. Or I borrow from Madison. She's not greedy." I wanted to believe that it was that simple. I wanted to ignore the new things that appeared in her wardrobe from time to time. I wanted not to think about how much those cocktails cost at the bars she went to every weekend. But most of all, I just wanted to sleep normally for at least one night. Pastor James put his hand on my shoulder. "Child, God doesn't give us more trials than we can bear." "Sometimes I feel like he has overestimated my strength," I replied, looking at the photos of my parents on their gravestones. "Maybe you need help? There are people in the community who—" "No, thank you, we're fine." That was a lie. We weren't fine. I wasn't fine. But my pride prevented me from asking for charity. I drove home to our rented apartment on the outskirts of town. 2 rooms, a kitchen, and a bathroom. Secondhand furniture, a refrigerator that rumbled at night, and a leaky faucet that the landlord had promised to fix 3 months ago. Alexa sat in front of the mirror and painted her lips with bright red lipstick. "Hi, how are you?" she said without looking up. "Fine. Are you going somewhere?" "Yes, Madison is throwing a party. They say the mayor's son is coming from college. Maybe I'll meet him." "Alexa, why don't you try to find a job?" "At least part-time?" She turned with an expression I knew by heart. Irritation mixed with contempt. "Merle, stop it. I'm not ready to work yet. I need time to come to terms with my parents' death." "And I don't? You're different. You like to control everything, to carry everything on your shoulders. But I want to live. Live." I wonder what she meant by that word. When Alexa left, leaving behind a cloud of expensive perfume, I sat down at the kitchen table with a calculator and bills. Rent, $900, electricity, $120, gas, $80, internet, $45, funeral payments, $300 a month for another 2 years, food, gas, car insurance. The math was relentless. Even working 3 jobs, I was barely making ends meet. And if something happened to the car or one of us got sick. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that I was losing myself. The girl who dreamed of becoming an elementary school teacher, who loved to read children's books and paint watercolor postcards, who laughed at her parents' jokes over evening pastries. She was gone. All that remained was exhaustion and the constant fear of not being able to pay for it all. The phone rang, an unfamiliar number. Hello? Hello, dear. It's Grandma Eleanor. I smiled for the first time all day. Grandma lived in Ohio and rarely called, but always at the right moment. Hi, Grandma. How are you? I'm fine. How are you and Alexa doing? I hope the $9,000 I send every month is helping. I froze. What 9,000, Grandma? The alarm clock rang at 5 in the morning, as usual. I reached out to turn it off and felt the familiar pain in my shoulders from lifting heavy boxes at the supermarket yesterday. It was still dark outside, but my day had already begun. I got up, trying not to wake Alexa, who was sleeping in the next room after another party. She came home around 2 in the morning. I heard her trying to open the door quietly, but her heels clattered on the floor like a woodpecker. In the bathroom, I looked at myself in the mirror. Dark circles under my eyes, skin gray from constant fatigue, hair that hadn't seen normal shampoo in a month. I used cheap shampoo from the dollar store that smelled like chemicals and left my hair stiff. A quick shower with cold water. Hot water was more expensive. I put on my cleaning uniform, old jeans with holes in the knees and a t-shirt I used to wear at university. It had the words Faculty of Education on it, but now they had faded and reminded me of the dreams I had to leave behind. In the kitchen, I made coffee in an old Turkish coffee pot that my parents had left behind. It was the cheapest coffee ground from a bag, but at home it was better than the coffee sold in vending machines at work for $2 a cup. For breakfast, I had a piece of bread with peanut butter. I bought the bread at a discount, the kind that was starting to go stale. I looked at the shopping list attached to the refrigerator with a magnet: milk, eggs, pasta, ketchup, bread, canned beans. $25 a week for food for 2 people, the math of stinginess which I had memorized. At 5:30, I was already sitting in my Honda, which was reluctant to start on cold mornings. The radio didn't work, neither did the air conditioning, and in winter the heater barely warmed up the interior. But the car ran, and that was the main thing. The technical inspection was 3 months overdue, but so far the police hadn't stopped me. The drive to the Tech Solution office building took 20 minutes through the suburbs, where the houses gradually changed from small wooden ones to glass office complexes. I always thought about how the people who worked in those offices arrived at work later than me, but earned as much in an hour as I did in a day. "Good morning, Merle." Rose, the security guard who worked the night shift, greeted me. She was the only person who saw me every morning and always smiled. "Good morning. How was your night?" "Quiet. Only the IT guys worked until 3, fixing something again." I nodded and went to the utility room to get a cart with cleaning supplies. Detergents, a mop, a vacuum cleaner that wheezed at every turn. I started with the toilets on the first floor. The worst part of the job, but it had to be done first. I cleaned the sinks and toilets and refilled the soap and toilet paper. The people who worked in the office didn't even think about the fact that someone came in every morning to clean up after them. To them, I was invisible, a middle-aged woman in a cleaning uniform, part of the interior. Sometimes I found forgotten items, expensive pens, headphones, even a wallet once I always turned them in to the lost and found, even though the temptation was huge, especially when I saw how much cash people carried in their wallets, for whom losing $100 was a trifle. At 8 in the morning, the office began to fill with employees, young men and women in suits with coffee from Starbucks and smiles on their faces, unconcerned that their electricity bill was a week overdue. I quickly finished cleaning and rushed home to change for my second job. Alexa, of course, was still asleep. On the kitchen table lay an empty bottle of expensive water that she had bought yesterday. $3 for a bottle of water, when the tap water is perfectly drinkable. She changed into her Freshmart supermarket uniform, a green t-shirt with the logo and dark pants. The t-shirt was too big, the pants too short, but that was all they gave out for free. At the supermarket, manager Kevin was already waiting at checkout number 5. Merle, we're expecting a large delivery today. Can you work a little longer? Of course. I always agreed to work extra hours. Every dollar was important. The workday at the supermarket dragged on endlessly. I scanned product codes, counted change, and bagged purchases. Thank you for shopping with us. Have a nice day. I repeated hundreds of times every day, even though I often wanted to scream. The hardest part was watching people buy food. I could only dream of organic vegetables for $15 a kilo, steaks for $30 a piece, expensive cheeses and wines. One woman bought $40 worth of cakes for her child's birthday. With that money, I could feed Alexa and me for a week. Can you ring up a discount? I have a coupon, said a middle-aged man, handing me a piece of paper. I looked at the coupon. 50 cents off yogurt. He drove a Bentley, which I had seen in the parking lot, but he was saving 50 cents on yogurt, and I couldn't afford to buy yogurt even at full price. During my lunch break, I sat in the staff room with a bag of crackers and an apple I had bought on sale. The other cashiers were discussing their plans for the weekend, vacations, shopping. I was silent, thinking about my evening shift delivering pizzas. Merle, do you ever take a break? Asked Sandy, the cashier at the next register. She was a year younger, but she only had one job and lived with her parents. Rest is a luxury I can't afford, but you have to relax sometimes. Maybe we could go to the movies on Friday. I smiled but shook my head. A movie ticket cost $12. That money could buy a week's worth of pasta. At 6 in the evening, I finished at the supermarket and went home to eat quickly before my third job. Alexa was sitting on the couch, doing her nails with expensive polish. Hi, how was your day? She said, without looking up from her nails. Fine. How was yours? Boring. I watched TV shows and talked to Madison. She invited me to a spa day tomorrow. I could use some relaxation. Spa days cost money. Madison says her dad will pay. He's rich. I looked at her more closely. She was wearing a new blouse that I hadn't seen before. Silk, expensive looking. Where'd you get the new blouse? Oh, this? Madison gave it to me. She says the color doesn't suit her. Madison gave it to her. A familiar answer. Over the past few months, Madison had given Alexia half her wardrobe, a bag of expensive cosmetics, even a watch. A very generous friend. She quickly ate a bowl of pasta with ketchup and went to Mario's Pizzeria. The owner, an old Italian man named Tony, always smiled, but paid minimum wage and didn't provide health insurance. Merle, we have a lot of orders today. There will be good tips, he said, handing me the first boxes of pizza. Good tips meant she could earn $20 for the evening instead of $15. It meant being able to buy meat on the weekend instead of more pasta. The first order was for an upscale neighborhood on a hill, a large house with a pool, 3 cars in the driveway. A woman in her 40s in an expensive robe opened the door. That'll be $38, I said. She gave me $40. Keep the change. A $2 tip for delivering a pizza on a 20-minute round trip. I smiled and thanked her, but inside I was boiling. This woman spent as much on pizza as I earned in 3 hours of work, and she gave me a tip as if it were charity. The next order was for a student dorm, a guy in his 20s, drunk and cheerful. Here's a $5 tip. I'm celebrating passing my exam today. $5. This student gave me more than the rich woman in the mansion. The irony of fate. This continued until 11 o'clock at night. Order after order, address after address. Dark streets, unfriendly neighborhoods where I was afraid to get out of the car. But money is money. I returned home at 11:30. Alexa was sitting in the kitchen with her laptop ordering something online. What are you buying? I asked, taking off my jacket. Nothing special. Face cream, mascara, small stuff. I looked over her shoulder at the screen. The total amount in the basket was $130, trifles that cost as much as my weekly earnings. Alexa, where did you get the money for this? She quickly closed her laptop. Madison lent it to me. We'll pay her back when I find a job. And when are you planning to look for one? I don't know. Maybe next week, or the week after. I sat down across from her at the kitchen table. Between us lay an empty bottle of expensive mineral water and a package of imported cookies that cost $8. Alexa, we need to talk about money. Again? She rolled her eyes. Merle, you worry too much. Everything will be fine. No, it won't. Look. I took out my calculator and started showing her. I earn $2,000 a month. Rent is $900. Utilities are $250. The funeral payment is $300. Food, gas, insurance, another $500. That leaves me minus $50. Minus, Alexa. Then work more. I looked at her and couldn't believe my ears. More? I work 17 hours a day. When? At night. I don't know. Find a better job. With an incomplete college education? No experience? In a small town? And when am I supposed to look for this job? Alexa got up and went to the refrigerator. She took out a $3 yogurt and started eating it. Listen, I understand that it's hard for you. But this is temporary. When I find a job, everything will be fine. And until then, we'll manage somehow. We. As if she also worked 17 hours a day, as if she too was denying herself the bare necessities. Alexa, how about you at least start saving? Don't buy expensive cosmetics. Don't go to parties. She turned around sharply. Merle, I'm 18. I have the right to live like all my peers. I can't just sit at home and cry over bills. Your peers have parents who support them, and I have an older sister. Those words hit me like a slap in the face. An older sister, not a relative, not a partner in the struggle for survival. An older sister who has to support her younger sister simply because that's how it turned out. I'm not your mother, Alex, but you act like one anyway. You're always lecturing me, controlling my every move. Because I have to. No one has to. You choose to be so responsible and boring. Boring. So caring about survival is boring. Working 3 jobs to pay the rent is boring. I got up from the kitchen without saying another word. I went to the bathroom, took a shower, and went to bed. Tomorrow it will be 5 a.m. again, 17 hours of work again, counting and saving on everything again. Behind the wall, Alex was talking on the phone with a friend, laughing and planning tomorrow's spa day. I lay in the dark and thought about the last time I laughed for no reason. I couldn't remember. In the morning, the alarm went off at 5 again. Again, coffee and bread with peanut butter. Again, the road to the office in the dark. But today, there was a note from Alexa on the kitchen table. Went to Madison for the whole day. I'll be back in the evening. Don't wait for me with dinner. Don't wait for me with dinner. As if I was cooking delicacies, not boiling pasta in one pot to save gas. All day I thought about my conversation with my sister. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am too controlling. Maybe I should give her more freedom. But when I came back from delivering pizza in the evening and saw Alexa with a new $200 handbag, I realized she had enough freedom. What she lacked was responsibility. A gift from Madison? I asked. No, I bought it myself. I found the money in an old jacket. A lie. I knew all our money by heart, but I didn't have the energy to argue. That night, lying in bed, I thought of Grandma Eleanor, my mother's mother, who lived in Columbus in a small apartment on a veteran's pension. She rarely called, only on holidays and birthdays. She always asked how we were doing, but I never told her the truth. I didn't want to bother the old woman with our problems. Maybe I should call her, just to talk. Not to ask for money, of course, but to hear a familiar voice. Number. Grandma was barely making ends meet herself. Her pension was $800 a month. I couldn't burden her with our problems. I fell asleep to the sound of Alexa laughing as she told someone on the phone about her wonderful day at the spa. On Saturday morning, when I could finally sleep until 7, I was awakened by the doorbell. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Who would come to our house on a Saturday morning? The landlord had promised to come and fix the faucet a month ago, but he never showed up. I looked through the peephole and froze. Grandma Eleanor was standing on the doorstep with a small suitcase on wheels and a bouquet of yellow chrysanthemums. Grandma! I opened the door and hugged her. She seemed smaller than I remembered and more fragile, but her smile was the same, warm and slightly mischievous. "Hello, dear. Sorry I didn't warn you. I decided to surprise you." "That's wonderful. Come in quickly." Grandma entered the hallway and looked around. She saw the peeling wallpaper and the crack in the ceiling, which I had covered with a secondhand painting. "Yes, the apartment is small," I said, a little embarrassed, "but it's enough for us for now." "The main thing is that it's cozy," Grandma replied, but I noticed concern in her eyes. I led her to the living room, where she sat down on our old sofa, which creaked with every movement. I put the suitcase against the wall and looked around. "Where's Alexa?" "She's still asleep. She had a party late last night." Grandma nodded, but I noticed something strange in her eyes again. Concern? Surprise? "I'll put the kettle on. You like green tea, don't you?" "Of course, dear. But first, sit down next to me. I want to look at you." I sat down next to her on the sofa, and Grandma took my hands in hers. Her palms were warm, but I felt her flinch when she touched my fingers, roughened by detergents. "Merle, my child, you look terribly tired and thin. When was the last time you ate properly?" "It's okay, Grandma, just a lot of work." "What work? You're in college, aren't you?" I hesitated. I didn't want to tell her the truth. I didn't want her to worry. "I took a leave of absence. Temporarily. I'm working. Saving money." "I understand," Grandma said, but the tone of her voice suggested that she understood much more than I was telling her. At that moment, Alexa came into the living room in her silk pajamas, yawning and rubbing her eyes. "Grandma," she exclaimed, sounding genuinely happy. "Why didn't you tell me? I would have met you." "I wanted to surprise you," Grandma replied, hugging Alexa. "How are you, dear?" "Everything's great, right, Merle?" Alexa looked at me with an expression that clearly said, "Don't you dare tell her about our problems." "Of course," I replied. Grandma looked at both of us, and I felt that she suspected something, but she put the kettle on and went to make breakfast. "Just don't make anything fancy," Alexa said. "I'm on a diet." On a diet. The girl who ate $30 worth of expensive sushi yesterday is on a diet. I cooked everything that was in the fridge. 2 eggs, toast made from bread that was starting to go stale, and jam that I had bought on sale. It wasn't much, but for us, it was almost a festive breakfast. At the table, Grandma talked about life in Columbus, about her neighbors, about the news. Alexa listened half-heartedly, glancing at her phone from time to time. "How are you doing financially?" Grandma suddenly asked, putting down her cup. Alexa tensed up. So did I. "Everything's fine," Alexa replied quickly. "Right, Merle?" "Yeah, we're getting by." Grandma looked at me intently. "That's strange. I thought the money I send you would make things easier." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What money? What do you mean?" Grandma looked at me in surprise, then at Alexa. $9,000 a month. I've been sending it for 6 months. Silence. Alexa turned white as a sheet. "Grandma," I said slowly, "I haven't received any money from you." Grandma looked at me, then at Alexa, then back at me. Her face gradually changed. Surprise turned to understanding, then anger. "Alexa," she said quietly, but there was steel in her voice. "Where's the money?" Alexa was silent, staring at her plate. "Alexa!" I can explain. Explain. Alexa looked up and I saw panic in her eyes. "The thing is, Merle is very proud. She wouldn't take the money, So you what?" "So I decided to use it myself. To buy what we need." I looked at my sister and couldn't believe what I was hearing. 6 months. For 6 months, she had been receiving $9,000 a month, $54,000, while I was working 17 hours a day for $2,000 a month. "What exactly did you buy?" Grandma asked coldly. "Well, clothes, cosmetics, food." "Food?" Grandma looked at the empty refrigerator, the cheap bread, the jam from the dollar store. "What food?" "Various things." "Alexa, Don't lie to me. Alexa started crying, fake tears which she had been able to produce since childhood when she needed to avoid punishment. Grandma, you don't understand. Children from rich families invite me to parties. I can't go there in cheap clothes. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing? Grandma got up from the table. You know what's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that your sister works 3 jobs while you play princess at her expense. Not at her expense. At your expense. The money I sent for both of you. I sat silently, trying to comprehend what I had heard. $9,000 a month. While I was cleaning toilets at 5 in the morning, Alexa was spending more on cosmetics than I earned in a month. Tell me everything from the beginning, Grandma said, sitting back down. Alexa wiped away her tears and tried to come up with some excuse, but Grandma waited. I met you at the mall 6 months ago, Grandma began. You were crying at the ATM. You said you had spent all your inheritance and didn't know how to go on. That Merle worked day and night, but there still wasn't enough money. I remembered that day. Alexa came home upset and said she had been downtown with her friends. She didn't mention meeting my grandmother. You asked for help, my grandmother continued. You said you were embarrassed to ask Merle because she works so much. I thought you had matured, that you understood responsibility. Alexa nodded, trying to squeeze out a few more tears. I said I would help, but the money was supposed to go toward general expenses, rent, food, utilities. You promised to give it to Merle. You wanted to have money for entertainment without working, her grandmother interrupted, and you took advantage of my love for you. Her grandmother stood up and went to her bag. She took out a folder with documents. Here are my bank statements. A monthly transfer of $9,000 in your name, Alex. And here are the receipts. She spread the papers on the table. I looked at the numbers and felt dizzy. $9,000 every month for 6 months. Where did you get that kind of money, Grandma? I asked. Grandpa left me insurance after he died. $150,000. I wanted to help you start a new life after your parents died. $150,000. It was all her savings, and she was giving it to us. Now show me what you spent it on, Grandma said to Alexi. Alexi reluctantly took us to her room. The closet was filled with expensive clothes with famous brand labels. On the dressing table were cosmetics that cost more than I earned in a month. Grandma picked up items and looked at the prices still on some of the tags. An $800 dress, a $600 handbag, shoes for $400. She turned to Alexa. Is that for one party? Not just one. How many? I don't know. Grandma walked over to the dressing table. She picked up a bottle of perfume. $300 for perfume. $300, Alexa, for a scent. Grandma, I can explain. Explain. Alexa sat down on the bed and hid her face in her hands. I didn't mean to lie. It's just, I have friends. They're rich. Their parents are lawyers, doctors, business people. When I'm with them, I have to look the part. The part of what? Their level. I can't go to a party in cheap clothes from a thrift store. They'll laugh at me. And for that, you let your sister work 3 jobs? I thought I'd find a job quickly. That I would pay everything back. When? I asked. When did you plan to start working? Alexa looked at me reproachfully. You don't understand. It's hard for me after my parents' death. I have a right to grieve. The right to grieve for $54,000? Grandma sat down next to Alexa. Child, tell me about these friends. What can I say? Just regular friends. What kind? Alexa told her about Madison, the daughter of a car dealership owner, about Brad, the mayor's son, about Tiffany, whose father owns a chain of restaurants, about their parties, trips, and entertainment. Are they real friends? Asked her grandmother. Of course. Then why didn't any of them help you when you were crying at the ATM? Alexa fell silent. Why didn't they offer you a job in their parents' businesses? Silence. Why are you hiding from them that you live in this apartment? I'm not hiding. Alexa, don't lie. You never invite them here. You always meet them at their places. Alexa cried again, but this time, the tears seemed real. I'm afraid they'll turn away from me if they find out the truth. What truth? That I'm poor, that I live in a rented apartment, that my sister cleans toilets. She said the last words with such venom that I felt physical pain. You're ashamed of me, I said. No, it's just, you're ashamed that I work so we can live. Merle, you don't understand. I understand more than you think. Grandma got out of bed. Merle, show me your room. My room was almost empty. A bed, a secondhand dresser, a table where I counted money every night. Clothes hung on a homemade hanger, 2 pairs of jeans, a few t-shirts, 1 skirt for special occasions. Grandma opened the dresser. Old sweaters, underwear that had seen better days. In a box on the table lay my treasures, a silver ring from my mother and a $10 watch. When was the last time you bought yourself something new? She asked. I don't remember. Months ago. What about cosmetics? I buy them at the dollar store. Grandma sat down on my bed and hugged me tightly. I could feel her hands shaking. My dear, I'm sorry. I didn't know. It's not your fault, Grandma. It is. I should have kept track of how the money was being spent. I should have called more often, asked how you were doing. The sound of a phone conversation came from Alexa's room. She was talking to someone, laughing. Who is she talking to? Asked Grandma. We went to the living room. Alexa was sitting on the sofa with her phone, discussing her plans for the evening. Yes, I'll come. I have a new dress, you'll see. Grandma snatched the phone from her. Alexa won't be coming to your parties anymore, she said into the phone and ended the conversation. Grandma, you have no right. I do. I pay for these parties. Alexa rushed for the phone, but Grandma hid it. From now on, everything is changing, she said sternly. The transfers are stopping. You're looking for a job and starting to pay back the debt. What debt? The $54,000 you stole from your sister. I didn't steal it. It was your money that I sent for both of you. I sat silently, still unable to fully comprehend the situation. 6 months of baking, 6 months of hunger, exhaustion, despair. And there was money. There was money, and it was spent on perfume and dresses. What happens now? I asked. Grandma looked at me, then at Alexa. Now we're going to sort this mess out. We sat in silence for an hour. Grandma drank tea and sorted through documents. I looked out the window, trying to comprehend everything I had heard. Alexa paced around the apartment, muttering something under her breath from time to time. It's not fair, she finally exploded. Why does everything fall on me? Grandma looked up from her papers. Because you've been stealing from your sister for 6 months. I didn't steal from anyone. The money was addressed to me, to be forwarded to Merle. How was I supposed to know? You said to help the family, so I did. I turned to her. How exactly did you help? By buying dresses for $800? Alexa stopped in the middle of the living room, her hands on her hips, her face red with indignation. What? Was I supposed to walk around in rags? Mom always said, you have to look good. Mom said a lot of things. But she also worked from morning till night to earn the money to look good. Don't compare Mom to me. Grandma got up from the sofa. Susan worked in the bakery next to Dad from the age of 15. She never spent money she didn't earn. Times were different then. Times are always hard for those who work and always easy for those who live off others. Alexa turned to me. Merle, tell her. I didn't mean to. I thought you knew about the money. How could I know if you didn't tell me? I thought you'd figure it out. Figure what out? That you buy new things every day without working. Well, I told you Madison helps. And you thought I'd believe that Madison gives you thousands of dollars worth of stuff every month? Alexa fell silent for a moment, then flared up again. You know what? Maybe it's for the best. You wouldn't have been able to spend that money properly anyway. Silence. Even the clock on the wall seemed to stop ticking. "What did you say?" I asked quietly. "Did you hear me?" "You would have spent it all on boring things, rent, food, utilities, and then you'd sit there counting every penny. Unlike spending $300 on perfume, yes, at least I was living. I was enjoying life, not existing like some kind of robot." Grandma approached Alexa. "Do you think living means spending other people's money on entertainment?" "I think living means not cleaning toilets at 5 in the morning." That phrase hit me harder than a slap. Alexa wasn't just ashamed of my job, she despised it. "I understand," I said, getting up from the couch. "Now everything is clear." "What is clear?" "What you think of me, what I am to you." Alexa realized she had gone too far. "Merle, I didn't mean—" "How exactly?" "Well, I'm just saying you deserve better, that you shouldn't have to work so hard." "And who should?" "You. I'm still young. I'm 18. I should be enjoying my youth." "And I shouldn't?" "Of course you should. It's just, you chose to be so responsible." Grandma sat back and looked at Alexa with an expression I had never seen on her face before. A cold, appraising look. "Alexa," she said slowly, "do you realize what you've done?" "I didn't do anything terrible. I just spent money. You made your sister go hungry while you lived in luxury." "She wasn't starving." "No." Grandma walked over to the refrigerator and opened it. "Look here." The refrigerator was almost empty. A carton of milk marked "expires tomorrow," a piece of cheese I bought on sale, and 3 eggs. "Is that food for 2 people for a week?" Alexa remained silent. "Now show me your cosmetics." Grandma went to Alexa's room and began removing bottles and tubes from the dressing table. $80 for foundation. "Merle, how much do you spend on food per week?" $25, I replied quietly. "That foundation costs more than your food for 3 days. Alexa tried to take the cosmetics back. "That's mine." "Bought with stolen money." "Not stolen. You gave it to me. I gave it to you for the family, not for your entertainment." Alexa suddenly changed tactics, threw herself on the floor, and cried. Real tears this time. "Grandma, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. It's so hard without my parents, and when I'm with my friends, I forget the pain." "At whose expense do you forget the pain?" I didn't think." "That's exactly the problem." "You didn't think." I walked over to Alexa and sat down next to her. "Alexa, when you were crying at the ATM, why didn't you come home and tell me?" She looked at me with wet eyes. "Because I knew you would lecture me. Instead, you lied to your grandmother and me." "I didn't plan it. It just happened. It happened for 6 months in a row." Alexa started crying again. "I wanted to pay it back. I thought I'd find a job and pay it all back." "When? In a year? In 2 years?" "I don't know." Grandma sat down in her chair and looked at both of us. "I'm making a decision." We turned to her. "Alexa, tomorrow morning you start looking for a job, any job." "Grandma." "Any. Waitress, cashier, cleaner. I don't care. But, no buts. Either you work or you move out." Alex turned pale. "Where would I move?" "That's your problem. I had one condition. The money goes to support the family. You broke the agreement. You can't kick me out. This is our apartment." "Which your sister pays for," Grandma replied coldly. Alexa turned to me. "Merle, tell her. We're sisters." I looked at her and felt a strange calmness. For the first time in many months, my thoughts became clear. You're right. We are sisters. But sisters support each other. They don't live off each other. I can fix this. How? I'll find a job. I'll pay you back. $54,000? At minimum wage, that will take 5 years. Then I'll sell my things. Grandma nodded. That's a good idea. Start with that. What should I sell? Everything you bought with the stolen money. Alexa looked toward her room where her expensive clothes hung. But then I'll have nothing left. That's right, I said. You'll have as much as I had for the past 6 months. That's cruel. Cruel. I stood up and looked down at her. You know what's cruel? It's cruel to work 17 hours a day while your sister buys perfume for $300. I didn't know you were having such a hard time. That's not true. You saw me eating macaroni and ketchup for dinner. You saw that I only have one sweater for the whole winter. You just didn't want to see. Alexa tried one last time. Merle, I'll give everything back. I swear, just don't kick me out. I'm not kicking you out. I'm setting conditions. What are they? I looked at Grandma, then back at Alexa. Tomorrow you're going to look for a job. Any job. In a week, you have to come home with an employment contract. What if I don't find one? You will. I found 3 jobs in one day. You'll find one in a week. What about my things? Sell everything that costs more than $50. The money will go toward paying back the debt. Where will I live? Here. But you'll pay your share of the rent and utilities, Alexa protested. But I won't have any money. Then don't buy $80 cosmetics. Grandma listened to our conversation with approval. Merle is right, but I'll add one more condition. What is it? A formal debt repayment agreement with signatures and witnesses. Alexa shuddered. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. $54,000 is a lot of money. What if I don't agree? Grandma got up and went to the phone. Then I'll call the police and report fraud. Fraud? You received money under false pretenses. That's a criminal offense. Alexa looked at me. Merle, you won't let me. It's your choice, Alexa. Either you work and pay back the debt, or I'll explain to the police how you spent $54,000 in 6 months without working. She sat on the floor and looked at us, as if she finally understood that the game was over. How much time do I have? For what? To pay back the money, Grandma thought for a moment. 5 years, $1,000 a month. $1,000? That's almost my entire salary. Then don't spend money on entertainment. Alexa got up from the floor and went to her room. A minute later, she returned with her laptop. What are you doing? I asked. I'm looking to see how much my things are worth on the secondary market. She opened a website for selling used items and began typing in brand names. Her face grew increasingly gloomy. A dress that cost $800 is selling for $200. That's still good, said Grandma. Usually things lose half their value as soon as you walk out of the store. So I won't even get half back. So next time, you'll think before you spend other people's money. Alexa closed her laptop and looked at me. Merle, I really didn't mean to hurt you. I know. Then why are you being so cruel? I walked over to the window and looked out at the street. People were walking home from work, carrying shopping bags, laughing. I'm not being cruel, Alexa. I'm tired. Tired of what? Of growing up instead of you. I turned to her. I'm 27 years old. I was supposed to finish college, find a job in my field, maybe even fall in love. Instead, I clean toilets and deliver pizza. I didn't ask. You didn't ask, but you didn't help either. You just lived your life at my expense. Alexa started crying again. I didn't know what to say. The truth. You should have told the truth. Grandma came over and hugged me. Sweetheart, you did the right thing. You finally spoke up. Spoke up? For months you were silent. You endured. You carried everything on your shoulders. It was time to say enough. I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in 6 months, I said what I was thinking out loud. For the first time, I put myself first. Alexa, I said, turning to my sister, I don't want to punish you. I want you to understand. Understand what? That money doesn't grow on trees, that someone works for every dollar, that your freedom cost me my own life. She nodded, still crying. I understand. I really understand. Then we have a deal? We have a deal. Grandma took the documents out of her bag. Then let's draw up a contract. For the next hour, we drew up a detailed plan for repaying the debt. Alexa had to find a job, sell her expensive things, and pay $1,000 a month for 5 years. When we finished, it was already getting dark outside. Alexa sat silently, signing the documents. "Now," said Grandma, "I want to talk to Merle alone." Alexa went to her room. Grandma sat down next to me on the sofa. "How do you feel?" "I don't know, mixed. Tell me." On the one hand, relief. Finally, everything has been revealed. On the other hand, sadness. I lost the sister I knew. Maybe you never knew her. Maybe. Grandma took my hand. "Sweetheart, I want you to understand one thing. You are not to blame for what happened." "I know." "No, you don't. You feel guilty. You think you should have noticed earlier, stopped it." She was right. Part of me did feel guilty. You are not Alexa's mother. You weren't obligated to raise her. Her parents should have done that, but unfortunately, they're gone. But I'm older. By 9 years. When you were 9, you weren't an adult either. I nodded, feeling the tension of the last few months gradually ease. "Now," said Grandma, "let's talk about you." A year later, I'm standing in front of the bathroom mirror and I hardly recognize myself. Not because I've changed dramatically on the outside, but because there's something new in my eyes. Calm, confidence, dignity. Today is Thursday, and I'm going to evening accounting classes at college, 3 times a week from 6 to 9 in the evening. I dreamed about this 6 months ago, but then it seemed completely unrealistic. Alexa moved into a rented room 3 months ago, a tiny studio on the outskirts of town for $250 a month, but it's hers. She works as a cashier at the Bean and Brew coffee shop, gets up at 5 in the morning, just like I used to. The irony of fate is inevitable. We see each other once a month when she brings a check for $1,000. We meet in the park by the fountain and talk about the weather and work, polite, reserved, like distant acquaintances. Sometimes it makes me sad, but more often I feel relieved. "How are you?" I ask, accepting the check. "Fine." I'm tired, but I'm getting used to it. "And your boss?" "He's tolerant." Sometimes he yells, but he pays on time. She has lost weight and tanned from her morning bus rides to work. She wears secondhand jeans and simple t-shirts, nothing like the girl in designer clothes who spent thousands of dollars on cosmetics. "Don't you regret it?" I asked her once. "What?" "That lifestyle. Your friends." She laughed, but without joy. "What friends?" "When I ran out of money, they disappeared within a week. Madison doesn't even reply to my messages." I wasn't surprised. Rich kids always befriend money, not people. "Do you have real friends now?" "The guys at work are okay. Sometimes we go to the movies or just hang out in the park. Nothing special, but honest. I wonder if she has finally discovered this concept for herself. My evening began at class, but ended at the Old Town Bar with Mark Dixon. We met a month ago in a financial planning class. He works as a mechanic at a car service center and studies accounting in the evenings to start his own business. "How was your day?" he asks, ordering 2 beers. "Good." "I finished a tax reporting project." "Was it difficult?" "At first, yes, but I'm gradually getting into the swing of things." Mark smiles. He is 31 years old, his hands calloused from working with tools, but his eyes are kind and intelligent. He is not handsome, not rich, not a prince from a fairy tale. An ordinary man who works for his money and is not ashamed of it. "And you? How are the cars?" "Today, I repaired an old pickup truck. The owner brought it in 5 times this month, every time something new breaks." "And does he pay?" "Always in cash. No haggling. I respect customers like that. We drink beer and talk about ordinary things, about work, school, plans for the future. No drama, no secrets, no lies. Simplicity, which I have learned to appreciate." "Merle," he says after a pause, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "You never talk about your family. Is there a problem?" I thought for a long time about whether to tell him about Alex. In the end, I decided to tell him the truth. Not everything, but the main points. I have a sister. She's younger. We have a complicated relationship. I understand. I have a brother, too. We haven't spoken in 3 years. Why? Money. He borrowed $5,000 from me for his business. He lost it all at the casino in a week. He still hasn't paid me back. It's interesting how often family problems boil down to money. But perhaps it's not about the money, but about the fact that it reveals a person's true priorities. Do you regret lending him the money? No, I regret trusting him twice more after that. Mark understands. He knows what it's like to work for every dollar and what it means when people close to you betray you. We leave the bar around 11. Mark walks me to my car, the same old Honda, but now it's been repaired and passed inspection. Want to go to the lake on Saturday? He asks. What's there? Nothing special. Nature, silence. We can bring sandwiches. Sounds great. It's been a long time since I've been out in nature just for fun. Okay. What time? I'll pick you up at 9. He kisses me goodbye, gently, without haste. His hands smell of motor oil and metal, but it's the honest smell of honest work. I drive home through the city center. I pass the bakery where my parents used to work. Now there's an Asian restaurant there, but I always slow down when I pass this place. I remember the smell of fresh bread and my mother's cherry cakes. The apartment greets me with silence. After Alex moved out, it became easier and calmer here. No bags with expensive purchases, no conversations about the golden youth, no complaints. I make myself some tea and sit down at the kitchen table with my management accounting textbook. I have a test tomorrow, so I need to review the material. Studying is difficult after a 2-year break, but I am persistent. The phone rings. It's Grandma Eleanor. Hello, dear. How are you? Fine, Grandma. I'm studying and working. Is everything okay at work? After that incident with Alexa, I quit 2 of my 3 jobs, cleaning the office and delivering food. I'm still working as a cashier at the supermarket, but now I'm full-time with health insurance. Yes, they even raised my salary. Now I make $2,200 a month. That's great. How are the classes? It's difficult, but interesting. The teacher says I have a knack for numbers. I don't doubt it. Your mother was also very attentive to detail. My grandmother calls regularly to ask how I'm doing. She still helps me financially. She pays for my courses and gives me a few $100s a month. But now it's real help, not a substitute for my own efforts. How's Alexa? She's working. She's paying off her debt. We hardly talk. Do you miss her? I think about my answer. Sometimes, but it's more nostalgia for the sister she was when we were kids, or maybe the sister I imagined her to be. I understand. Sometimes people disappoint us not because they change, but because we finally see them for who they really are. After talking to my grandmother, I study for another hour, then go to bed. Tomorrow I have an early shift at the supermarket, then classes. My daily routine is clear, but not crazy like it was a year ago. Saturday morning. Mark arrives at 9 o'clock sharp in his old Ford, which he repaired himself. We drive to Pine Ridge Lake, half an hour from the city. It's beautiful here, I say, looking at the water and the forest around us. The best place to think. When I have problems, I always come here. We spread a blanket on the shore and unpack our sandwiches. Mark brought homemade lemonade and I brought cookies I baked last night. It was the first time I baked something for pleasure, not out of necessity. Delicious cookies, he says. Your mom's recipe? Yes. She taught me when I was 12. Did she bake professionally too? She and my dad had a bakery. It was small, but people loved our pastries. I tell him about my parents, about their struggles during the pandemic, about the accident. I don't mention Alex and the stolen money. That story still hurts too much. I'm sorry, Mark says. It must be hard to talk about. It used to be harder. Now I can talk about them without crying. That's good. It means you're accepting the loss. We lie on a blanket and look at the clouds. Silence, calm. A feeling that time has stopped. I haven't felt this peaceful in a long time. Merle, Mark says. Can I ask you another personal question? Sure. Have you ever dreamed of something big besides studying and working? I think about my answer. I used to dream of becoming a teacher, to have my own class, to teach children. And now? Now I understand that dreams can change. Maybe I'll open my own accounting firm, or I'll go back to teaching, but with life experience. That sounds realistic. What about you? What do you dream of? My own car service. Small but high quality, so that people come not because it's cheap, but because they can trust it. I like his approach. No grandiose plans, but clear, achievable goals. In the evening, he drives me home. At the door, he kisses me longer than usual. I want to see you again, he says. Me too. I have tomorrow off. We can go to the movies. Okay, but I get to choose the movie. He laughs. Deal. Sunday. Early in the morning, I go to the cemetery to visit my parents. It's a traditional visit, but now it's not associated with despair and counting my last pennies. I bring a bouquet of fresh flowers. White roses I bought yesterday at the market. They're not cheap, but I can afford them. A small luxury that once seemed unattainable. I stand by the graves and tell my parents the news about my classes, about Mark, about how my life is slowly getting back on track. I don't know if they can hear me, but I feel like I need to. Mom, Dad, I did it. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, but I did it. The wind rustles the leaves on the old oak tree nearby. Somewhere in the distance, church bells are ringing. It's a calm, quiet Sunday in a small town. Alexa is doing well too, in her own way. Maybe someday we'll be close again, maybe not, but she's learning to live on her own. Suddenly, I hear footsteps behind me. I turn around and see Alexa with a small bouquet of yellow chrysanthemums. She stops when she sees me. Hi, she says quietly. Hi. I didn't know you'd be here. I always come on Sundays. She comes closer and places her flowers next to mine. Nice roses. Thanks. We stand silently for a few minutes. It's uncomfortable, but not hostile. How's work? I ask. Fine. Yesterday, my manager praised me for my speed. That's good. How about you? How are your classes? Difficult, but interesting. I have a test in a month. You'll be fine. You've always been smart. The compliment is unexpected and seems sincere. Alexa, I say, how are you feeling? Really? She looks at the gravestones, then at me. Tired. But I don't know how to explain it. Calmer. I used to worry all the time about what other people would think. Now I don't care. That's good. Merle, She hesitates. What? I wanted to say that I understand now. How you felt back then, when you were working 3 jobs. I'm forging ahead. I understand. And I understand why you're angry with me. I'm not angry, Alex. I'm disappointed. They're different things. Can disappointment be fixed? I think about it. Yes, but it takes time. How long? I don't know. Maybe years. She forges, then smiles. I have time. 5 years of debt payments is a lot of time to prove that I've changed. We stood there silently for a while longer, then went our separate ways. We didn't hug. We didn't agree to meet again. We just said goodbye. I walk to my car and feel a strange calm. Not reconciliation, not forgiveness, but some kind of understanding. We have both changed. We are both learning to live in a new way. In the evening, I sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and look at the bills. But now it's not stressful survival math, just ordinary budget planning. Rent is $900. Utilities are $200. Food is $400. Classes are $300 a month. Gas, insurance, small expenses. That leaves $500 that I can save or spend on something nice. For the first time in several years, I have a choice. I can go to a restaurant, buy a new dress, send flowers to my grandmother. I can just save the money for the future. Freedom of choice is a luxury I didn't notice until I lost it. The phone rings. It's Mark. Hi, how's your day? Quiet. I was at the cemetery. Visiting your parents? Yes, what have you been up to? Fixing my friend's motorcycle. And thinking about you in the evening. I smile. That's nice to hear. Merle, can I say something? Of course. I like who you are. Serious but not gloomy. Strong but not harsh. Real. Thank you. Good night. Good night. I hang up and feel warm inside, not the intoxication of love, but the quiet joy of knowing that there is someone who understands and appreciates me for who I am. I go to the bathroom and look in the mirror. It's the same tired girl who was counting her last dollars a year ago, but there's something different in her eyes. Confidence, dignity, knowing her own worth. I lost my illusions about my sister, but I found myself. I lost my naivety, but I gained wisdom. I lost my youth, but I gained strength. Life did not become a fairy tale. I still work as a cashier. I still study in the evenings. I still count money. But now I do it by choice, not out of desperation. And that's the most valuable thing I have, the ability to look in the mirror without shame. To know that I earn my bread honestly and don't live off others. Money is important. You can't live without it. But the most important thing is to preserve yourself while you earn it. And I did. Not completely, not without losses, but I preserved the most important thing. Tomorrow is a new day. Work, study, maybe a call from Mark. The ordinary life of an ordinary person working for their dreams. And that's wonderful.